Hi, my name is Paul, and today we will try to replace a door skin on a 1750 Alfa Romeo GTV. And this is the car.
As you can see, this Alfa is going through a total restoration. Changing the floors, wheel arches, quarter panels, and there's still a few things left. But today it's all about the door frames and the door panels. Unfortunately, the previous owners that started to restore this car had lost a few of the door brackets. Luckily, we had a donor door in even worse shape. By drilling out the welds with a spot weld drill bit, we were able to take off the welded brackets from the donor door quite easy. After that, I could start rust repairs on the original door frame, starting with removing the original door skin by grinding down the fold alongside the edge of the door. And as expected, there was a lot of rust in between the door skin and the frame. Unfortunately, I lost all the footage from the day I manufactured all the parts for this door frame. But I did take some pictures with my phone during the day, so at least I can provide a few stills. After most of the welding was done, I was off to do some blasting and clean up the whole door frame with glass blasting in this huge blasting cabinet a friend of mine have. A big shout out to him for lending me this cabinet. Then I used a wire brush on a drill to clean up the brackets from the old donor door. And I really love using these Cleco clamps to hold parts in place while I'm welding. Now it was just a matter of welding the brackets from the donor door over to the restored frame. The top part of the door frame had to be trued before it could be welded back to the door frame itself. And there was a lot of stretching and crimping needed to straighten out this part. So I'll just fast forward a little bit here. After some firm persuasion, the rust-free top part of the door frame was once again true. And it was welded back onto the door frame itself, using the same original tack points. And finally, the door frame is ready. But before I can start fitting the door skin, the door frame has to be sent off to the body shop for a full base coat of acid primer. When the door frame came back from the body shop, there were a few cavities lacking primer, and to prevent corrosion in the future, I applied a few coats of zinc primer in those areas. When the primer was dry, it was time to test fit the frame in the opening again, and see if it was still sitting straight. It's key to adjust the door frame and make sure it sits straight and true in the door opening before I start with the door skin. And as a bonus, you get quite good at adjusting the doors after taking them on and off all the time. Here, the door frame is mounted again, and I'm finally ready to start working and adjusting in combination with the door skin. When trying the door skin on the car for the first time, it was apparent that the rear top end of the front fender was not in line with the door. It was bent downwards towards the rear end of the A-pillar. So this part of the fender had to be adjusted, and since this section of the fender have a lot of profiles and folds, it was quite stiff and tricky to work with. But with some gentle persuasion and a contour gauge, a lot of patience, I got there in the end. After the fender was sorted out, I had to adjust the door frame to maintain an even gap. Then do some minor adjustment to the frame, and finally, the frame is ready for a new door skin. The top part of the door skin was arching, and I had to crimp the steel quite a lot for the top part to be true and follow the lines of the car. After adjusting the skin, it was time to put it onto the door frame. But before I start folding the skin around the frame edge, I lock the skin in place with clecos. I do this to make sure the skin will not shift when I start to fold the edges. And I can't praise these clecos enough. They are really handy when working on sheet metal like this. Then off with the door, again, to start fold the sheet metal around the edge of the door frame. At first I just do a partial fold, and then refit the door on the car again, just to verify that everything is as good as it can get. And then off with the door again. Well, it's time to start the process of folding the door skin in place. During the folding process, the door is on and off the car several times. That way it's easier to be on top of the adjustments needed to manage the gaps around the door. In the beginning, I felt that the bottom of the door were possessed with black magic or something. When I got one part through, another part would start warping on me. But after a lot of back and forth, I finally got rid of the tension. And the door were finally following the car in this nice smooth curve. Here you can see the gap is bigger in the midsection, and to make this gap smaller, I kind of squeeze the fold a little bit with a door skin hammer. But I have to be careful not overdoing it. If I squish the fold too much, the transition will not look smooth and invisible. Adjusting all these gaps is a tedious process of folding, unfolding and molding the steel. And unfortunately, there is no shortcuts working with steel. You do have to be patient and not be tempted to hit too hard to speed up the process. But I find it really rewarding when I see a good result in the other end of all that hammering. At this point, I'm more or less done adjusting the rear and the underside of the door, and the gap is nice and even. But the gap between the door and the front fender also needs adjusting, and to do that, the door has to come off again. And this time I marked the bracket so it's easy to get the door back on the exact same place. At the front of the door, the gap was a bit big in the midsection and near the bottom. And the same process of molding the metal had to be done here as well. The shape of the replacement door skin was not as round as the original front fender, and I found it easier to adjust the shape with a grinder and just repair it with a weld, than trying to crimp the corner and reshaping it with a hammer. I'm quite happy with the end result. The gaps were probably not this even when the car was new. And the only thing left to do now is to spot weld the top of the door. And then I can do this process all over again on the other door.